Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
In this episode from the archives, I examine postseason analysis of the passing game. Take a look at insights and discuss the importance of dissecting plays to understand success and failures. And we talk about using a data-driven approach to enhance how you will practice and the strategy you'll use to put together your passing game for the future. We have an ebook for you this week called Evaluate, and it's presented by Modern Football Technology. We dig into all the different types of evaluations, give you some how-tos and even some forms to get those things done. Please watch for that this week on coachandcoordinator.com. That will be available as a free download.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Throughout this offseason, which has started for a lot of coaches around the country, we're going to focus on things that are important for you right now. And one of those things I really believe deeply in is going back through the past season and doing some postseason analysis. And we've shared a few of those podcasts already. Today's podcast is going to focus on a blog that I did several years ago on postseason analysis factors affecting the passing game. So I want to share some ideas from that. As I said, the offseason gives the coaching staff the opportunity to go back and evaluate their work from the previous season. I think if it's done correctly, the process can serve to identify the effectiveness of passing concepts. And for me, I got to the point really where I didn't want to really start from the point where I was going to discard a bad concept or one that wasn't effective until I could understand why it wasn't effective. So maybe I would discard it, but I really wanted to understand exactly what's going on. Is there a technique that we're not running correctly? Is there something happening in another phase of this that maybe the way it's being protected is not giving us enough time to hit certain routes in it? We wanted to be very forensic in how we were going to pull this apart and figure out what was going on. So by charting key data on each play, the coaching staff can pinpoint correct assignment and technique, as well as developing coaching points and drills to improve the effectiveness of the play. So we get done with that forensic detail. We determine we need to make these changes here or there. We're going to look also at how do we carry this into practice next season. So not just what's going on with this play, but how are we going to practice it as well. Just looking at statistical data only tells part of the story. So for our example, takeoff change or my 4 vertical concept, we're going to look at this on 3rd down and 6+ yards to go. In this particular season, we had a 72% conversion rate when we utilized this play. And in general, that statistic tells us we should be calling that play more on 3rd and long. And this might be true, but we have the opportunity to learn much more about that 72% and why it worked as well as why it didn't. Analyzing some factors can help us replicate or improve the success of this concept in the next season, as well as anticipate what the defense may do to adjust to it. We need to know the opponent and be studying our film as well as seeing what stopped the play and how there should be something that we have to have a clear understanding of as well. The process works for concepts that were not successful. It works for concepts that were successful. It works for those ones in the middle. So again, just seeing a completion rate or yards per attempt may not tell the whole story. A few adjustments may make that concept more effective. And the point is that quality control work must be done to get the whole picture. This has really served to be effective in the run game for me over the course of time, in the passing game and play action. I can think of a particular boot concept we were running where we had two routes that were absolutely dead routes. They weren't productive for us. And while we got a lot of production out of everything else, it didn't sit with me well that I had these two routes that didn't do anything for us at any time. So our search began in the offseason after we identified that and tearing apart that passing concept that we need better changes and answers essentially for what were both the outside routes. And long story short, I was able to get what was called a K route from Dub Maddox at Jenks High School. In the same year, I was able to talk to Andrew Coverdale and talk to him about his concepts. And he gave us what he called the beeline post for the backside receiver. And that next year, both of those routes scored touchdowns. Both were more productive. And it really helped open up the other routes in our passing game. So this process, I really believe in it. I think it works. I'm going to go through again looking at our 4-vert change play, which is just 2 switch verticals. A lot of it was 2x2. I think all of it in these examples on the video I will share with you are 2x2. And it allowed us to tear that apart and utilize, those answers to understand why it worked so well for us that particular year. Analyzing some factors can help us replicate or improve the success of this concept in the next season, as well as anticipate what the defense may do to adjust to it. So, for example, there was a lot of what we call cover 5, 3 under 3 deep against this. Well, that next season, maybe, that team who was running it a lot against us isn't going to go to that on 3rd and long. Maybe we're going to expect to see something else, and that helps us as we pull our notes together from our off-season study into our game plan folders. We start to see, okay, this is what we studied in the off-season. Let's look at these potential adjustments. So this carries forward not just right now in understanding it, but again, into practice, as I mentioned before, and now also in the game plan. The first thing we're going to look at is protection. And really, this is not a key part of the study, but we want to chart this because it's something we may have to go back to later and understand how protection affected a certain play. It's something we analyze separately, but we're going to identify any potential issues that really affect the timing of the play as well as getting our running back into the route. We want to ensure that the protection call doesn't have an effect on the back's ability to check release. So, for example, we may want the back checking to the flat to the right, but the protection is putting him to the left. He won't be able to get to his assigned spot efficiently. So this is a consideration we want to chart and understand. Obviously, the protection is a priority, but the integrity of the route must be considered as well. And if the back is constantly put away from the flat to the right, we may want to consider how we call the protection or what route we're giving him after he check releases. Now, I want to preface that by saying we allowed our quarterback to check the protection and to put us into things that were going to get him protected. Protection first was our philosophy. So yes, we might lose that route. But again, if we were losing it consistently and we had to check the protection a certain way and we weren't getting him to where we wanted to after, this is something now that in our study, we're going to be able to determine what's a better way to do this. Route spacing is the next factor. This involves the horizontal and vertical distribution of routes. Each individual route should have enough room to work and attack defender techniques. Passing concepts rely on stretching the defense, both horizontally and vertically, to open up voids in coverage. Every coverage has a weakness. So understanding route spacing and what our receivers are doing to maintain spacing or errors that are made in spacing will help us to improve that concept. To determine the success in route spacing within each route, we add up the total number of routes. So if it was 10 passes and 4 receivers in the route, the total number we start with is 40. Now we add up the route space correctly. Let's say 30 of those were correct. Then the route spacing score was 30 out of 40 or 75%. This gives us a baseline number on each concept to use from a particular formation. So maybe a certain defensive technique caused issues in rerouting the receiver and ruining the spacing. Now we have some hard data as well as corresponding video to refine and develop our techniques and spacing for the next season.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. From the co-director of Shrek and the visionary behind Toy Story comes Spellbound, a magical new animated adventure starring Rachel Zegler, John Lithgow, Jennifer Lewis, Nathan Lane, and Titus Burgess with Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman. When a powerful spell turns her parents into monsters, Princess Elian must journey into the wild to reverse the curse before it's too late. Watch Spellbound, only on Netflix November 22nd.
The next area we look at is route depth and receiver break techniques. We want to get into technique in this as well. As I mentioned in the last one, route spacing, a lot of that involves how are we going to release from that defender. Well, route depth and route break techniques are going to affect things as well. Breaking a route correctly involves both timing and technique, and especially in terms of body position. So a receiver who breaks too early or is giving indicators of his break is a factor that can affect completions. The depth at which routes are run affect both the timing and the spacing. A route run too short or too long is in danger of causing a broken up pass or an interception. The percentage for this category is calculated by taking all the routes that have some kind of a break. So we would eliminate straight, vertical routes or swings or flats, other routes that might not fit this category of having a route break. A lot of these are your intermediate type of routes. There are some short routes as well. So we're going to calculate that again by taking all the routes that have some kind of break and getting a total number of routes that break within a concept. Again, if you are analyzing 10 passes of one concept and those contain 2 routes that break, you had a total of 20. Likewise, you use that number as a divisor for the total breaking at the correct depth and footwork. So let's say it was only 10, then the percentage is 10 out of 20 or 50%. Again, now you have that baseline, a number to analyze and investigate. What caused the incorrect break? Can you modify that technique? How are you teaching the route? Again, going into the drills, what do we have in practice that actually worked that? We should be able to go back to our practice plan and see where and how much we utilized a drill that worked on those specific breaks. We might find out that there was not enough time put towards that. And time may be a factor, to practice time. We may have to put more time towards that. Again, we're going to look at that in forensic detail and determine what are we going to do with this data. The data in the film study is going to help you improve the quality of the concept and develop drills and coaching points to improve the effectiveness. The next section we look at is quarterback timing. I am a big believer in getting the quarterback on the stopwatch. I've talked about this several times on the podcast. It's an idea I learned a long time ago in Homer Smith's manuals, and then later I learned it from Dan Gonzalez. Dub Maddox is a big believer in this well. Those guys definitely have affected some of the work I've done as an offensive coach. So in quarterback timing, the quarterback's working through his progression with both his eyes and his feet. And a proper progression by the quarterback has him looking at a route for the correct amount of time before moving on to the next route or throwing a different route in the progression. If your concepts are set up correctly and the quarterback is disciplined in how he moves through his progression, the timing of the routes can be calibrated so the quarterback is moving his eyes and feet through the progression and releasing the ball within a consistent timing for each route. A route thrown too quickly always has a danger of being broken up because the receiver hasn't had the time to gain separation out of his cut. On the other hand, a route held too long also can be broken up or worse, intercepted. A lot of times that's where interceptions come, as they were held too long. Putting a play on a stopwatch from the snap to the release is going to show a lot about the routes and when they should be thrown. Having the data will help provide better feedback for your quarterback in their offseason work, as well as giving you a tool for feedback during the season. Again, if you weren't doing that, I recommend going back, understanding the calibration of your routes. I think we had a podcast earlier in the offseason. We'll include that link in the show notes. go back through and take a look at what you can do with quarterback timing, and as well as looking at it through the postseason analysis here. The next section is quarterback accuracy. The quarterback should be throwing the ball to certain spots. We really want to get him in fine detail, throwing to certain shoulders or certain side of the body for the receiver so he knows where to break. Accuracy is a reflection of correct mechanics. And while this may not have a lot to do with your concept or a certain concept, it can have a relationship to how his drop and footwork are affecting the throw. An accurate throw is often one that is within the framework of where the receiver can legitimately reach his hands. So there's a halo there of where his hands work around. If we're throwing it within that halo, in general, we count that as accurate. We count incredible diving or jumping catches out of the receiver's range as inaccurate for the most part. Often this can be closely related to the timing. This may also uncover some mechanic issues for each quarterback. And now you, again, have the details to give them some drills to improve whatever mechanics problems are identified and things that are causing inaccuracy on certain routes or in general. You'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. We'll include a diagram of what that catch radius looks like for a receiver in our show notes. The next thing we're going to look at is routes thrown within each concept. Analyzing how the ball's distributed within each concept is going to tell you something about the plays you're designing and calling in general. So being able to track which routes are thrown and even which routes are thrown against certain coverages is going to provide valuable information in adjusting or finding better answers for your passing game and developing answers for how you're going to attack certain defenses in the future. If your analysis shows that for verticals, for example, against quarter coverage, 90% of the passes completed were checkdowns, you may want to dig deeper and consider how to improve getting the ball down the field to an intermediate route. A lot of teams, and we do it too, have some break-off rules there against quarter coverage. So maybe you need to do a better job investigating that and understanding that, and that leads some of your off-season research. Maybe it's a route just needs to be adjusted in a certain coverage so that you do have some kind of intermediate option that breaks into a void. So what you're going to do is really fill out a spreadsheet with this. And honestly, you could include this in a huddle breakdown and export it. I think huddle is one of the most efficient ways to do this right now. So I would highly recommend that. What you're going to see is a spreadsheet from Excel. I'll put that graphic in, but that can easily be set up in huddle. And now you're going to start your breakdowns. You're going to get this information. And again, you can export it and manipulate the data as you get it out of huddle, or run some custom reports like huddle allows you to do. After the fields have been filled out in a spreadsheet, the coach can draw conclusions about the past concept. This has been a useful analysis tool in helping us make dead routes come alive, as I mentioned before, by making simple adjustments or using checks when we see certain coverages. For example, when the plays analyzed within our 3rd and 6+ calls, which the video again is in our show notes, we see that against odd number coverages, we favor throwing the boundary seam. This would hold true with how we structure the progression with the quarterback scanning the field from seam to boundary. We also see that we hit the dig and comeback conversions against 2 safety coverages. In addition, any technique break errors we had were on the dig or seam conversions. So now we can use this data to think about coaching points or drills to ensure that those things aren't happening. Again, this data is not just being put together for data's sake and to tell us how good we are. It's allowing us to solve problems and move forward and carry this into practice. The last important aspect of this is we're going to start to calibrate throws. So in the example that you're going to see on video, we see the boundary throw seam being thrown from 2.0 to 2.3 seconds. The dig in that particular route is thrown 2.6 to 2.7 seconds. And we carry that data over to the next season, knowing that we should get those routes out within those certain ranges, or possibly we may want to make some tweaks or changes to the timing of what we're doing within a particular concept. Regardless, with all of this, now we have a place to start making improvements. So you see how this comes together. Again, look at the chart on our show notes. I have a video in there that goes through and shows how we chart and think about each aspect of this as it relates to what I talked about here in postseason analysis, factors affecting the passing game. At Coaching Coordinator, we pledge to source the latest and greatest products and services available in the coaching marketplace. We call this repository the 10% Toolkit. These resources are proven to help coaches win games and achieve all objectives for their programs. Think of it as a buyer's guide for vendors and suppliers we trust with our seal of certification. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.